Right now, there are 29 electric vehicles on the road for every single public charging plug in America.
Yeah, which is just a wild ratio.
It's a total mathematical bottleneck.
Oh.
Practically guarantees range anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine being miles from the nearest town and you're just watching your battery percentage plummet towards zero,
Oh, it's the worst feeling.
knowing that even if you somehow make it to a charger, there might be like a massive line of cars waiting for it. But what if the solution to this whole infrastructure crisis isn't just pouring millions of tons of concrete to build more stations? What if instead the charger just drove to you?
Right, which completely flips the script on, a century of automotive habit.
Exactly.
We're just so conditioned to believe that a car has to travel to the fuel. So changing that dynamic, having the fuel autonomously find the car, is going to fundamentally alter urban planning.
Well, welcome to our deep dive into the rapidly evolving and sometimes honestly completely invisible ecosystem of EV charging. We're looking at a future that moves way, way beyond stationary plugs and parking lots.
We really are.
We're unpacking mobile chargers, autonomous charging robots, and this massive structural shift towards something the industry calls charging as a service, or COPAS.
Yeah, and we've got a really comprehensive stack of sources mapping this out today. We'll be looking at a recent AAA press release on mobile rescue units, some market forecasts from Future Market Insights and TechSci Research, program details from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, and this really fascinating, highly technical white paper from EO Charging.
Right, the one that outlines the brutal realities of electrifying commercial fleets.
Exactly.
So our goal today is to help you understand that the EV revolution isn't really about the vehicles anymore. Like, the cars are built. The real revolution is this highly intelligent, highly mobile web of power distribution operating behind the scenes. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We have to start with the most immediate, relatable problem for you or, anyone driving an EV today, getting stranded with a dead battery.
Yeah, bringing it back to that 29-to-1 ratio we mentioned at the top, the Alliance for Automotive Innovation actually highlighted that density gap in the TechSci report. Until permanent infrastructure catches up, that gap is going to swallow a lot of drivers.
It really is. And it turns out legacy companies are the ones stepping up to act as the lifeline here. So AAA is launching a pilot program right now in 16 U.S. metro areas, places like Orlando, Denver, San Francisco, Grand Rapids.
Right.
If you're an AAA member and you run out of juice, they don't just send a tow truck to drag you to a station anymore. They send a specialized truck equipped with a mobile EV charger to give you enough range to get home. And they're doing it at no extra charge.
Which is huge. And what's fascinating about this specific AAA program is the historical context behind it. They aren't just like guessing at how to do this.
No.
No, they actually launched a pilot program way back in 2010 using 5 prototype vehicles.
2010, really?
Yeah. They ran those prototypes for a decade, just quietly collecting data on how often people get stranded, what kind of charge they actually need in those moments, and all the logistics of deploying mobile power.
Oh, wow.
So they retired those initial trucks and used 10 years of hard data to build this current iteration.
So they know exactly how much of a lifeline you need. But it isn't just massive roadside assistance networks getting in on this. There is some wild consumer tech popping up to solve the same problem. Like, there's a company called GoSun that just launched a portable EV charger that mounts directly to a standard car roof rack.
Okay.
You park the car, and it deploys these foldable solar panels.
Which is a brilliant approach to decentralized power, honestly. But we should probably be clear about how that mechanism actually works.
Fair point.
A solar panel on a roof isn't going to fully charge an EV battery in an hour. It's trickling energy into the system. It addresses a very specific pain point for owners who want to, say, passively offset their daily commute while parked in the sun, or
if they need to extend their range a few miles when they're totally off the grid camping.
Exactly. It's not a supercharger on your roof.
Right. But speaking of fast charging, let's look at the robotics side, because the TechSci report details something that sounds like pure science fiction to me.
The Flashbot.
Yes. IonN Dynamics recently demonstrated this robot called the Flashbot at the Detroit Smart Parking Lab. It's an autonomous, mobile, level 3 DC fast charging robot. It literally navigates a parking garage on its own to find your car and charge it.
It just removes the friction of the charging experience entirely. You don't have to circle a garage looking for that one green painted spot with a charger.
Right, you just park wherever.
You park anywhere, request a charge via an app, and the robot just navigates the facility, avoiding pedestrians and other cars to deliver the power.
Okay, I have to pause you there because the report specifically calls it a level 3 DC fast charging robot. For someone listening who, only knows they plug their car into the wall at night, what does that actually mean?
Good question.
Like, how does a battery on wheels deliver a fast charge?
So it really comes down to the type of electrical current. The power grid and the regular outlets in your home provide alternating current, or AC. But an electric vehicle battery can only store direct current, or DC.
Okay.
So when you plug your car into a standard AC wall outlet, like a level 1 or level 2 charger, the car has to use its own heavy onboard converter to slowly change that AC power into DC power before it can go into the battery.
Which is why charging at home takes, 8 to 12 hours?
Yeah, exactly. The car is doing all the heavy lifting of converting the energy.
Got it.
But a level 3 DC fast charger is essentially a massive external converter. It takes the grid power, converts it to DC externally, and bypasses the car's internal converter entirely. It just slams direct current straight into the battery.
Oh, so that's why it's so much faster.
Right. And what makes the Flashbot so impressive is that it's carrying a massive internal battery that already holds DC power, so it can dump that energy into your car's battery at incredibly high speeds without any conversion bottleneck.
Okay, that makes sense mechanically. But I still have to push back on the broader efficiency of these mobile solutions.
Ooh.
Yeah, like if I'm stranded on the side of the highway or I'm waiting in a parking lot for a robot, isn't this just the equivalent of carrying around a giant heavy power bank for my smartphone?
I see what you're saying.
Because the TechSci report notes that portable chargers often operate at much lower power levels than permanent stations. I mean, I don't want to sit on the side of I-95 for 3 hours waiting for a trickle charge.
Well, you wouldn't be waiting 3 hours. The strategy here isn't to give you a 100% full battery. The strategy is rapid triage.
Triage, okay.
Remember that 29-to-1 ratio? These lower power mobile trucks or robots aren't meant to replace permanent grid-tied fast chargers. They're emergency lifelines. They're designed to give you 15 or 20 miles of range in a few minutes, just enough to bridge the gap and get you to a prominent station.
Okay, so it's a stopgap. It's a highly intelligent triage system while the physical infrastructure catches up.
Exactly. That's the best way to look at it for the individual consumer. But, the narrative changes completely when we shift away from individual drivers and look at businesses.
Right. Because if you or I are frustrated by a lack of public chargers, imagine the absolute nightmare for a logistics company trying to electrify a fleet of 50 delivery vans.
Oh, it's a totally different scale.
They can't rely on a AAA rescue truck or a solar panel on a roof rack.
No, definitely not. And the financial reality is that they also don't want to build their own charging stations. The Future Market Insights report outlines this massive macro shift in the industry toward charging as a service, or COS.
Yeah, I saw those numbers in the forecast, and they are honestly staggering.
They really are. The global COS market is valued at $2.6 billion for 2026, but it's projected to explode to $16.8 billion by 2036.
Wow.
That's a 20.5% compound annual growth rate, and the U.S. is the fastest growing region for this model.
Okay, let me try to translate this into a different tech sector. This sounds exactly like the cloud computing model applied to electricity.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like 10 years ago, if you started a tech company, you had to build a massive air-conditioned server room in your basement. It was expensive, difficult to maintain. Now, you just rent server space from AWS. You subscribe to the cloud.
Yes.
With Caius, instead of a delivery company building $1 million electrical substation in their parking lot, they just subscribe to a charging network.
That is the perfect analogy, and the data backs it up completely. The report notes that 55% of this market's revenue now comes from subscription or pay-per-use models.
So they're just renting the power.
Businesses are shifting away from hardware ownership entirely. In accounting terms, they're moving from a massive capital expenditure CapEx to a predictable operating expense, or OpEx.
Because, yeah, a logistics company wants to focus on delivering packages, not becoming an electrical engineering firm.
Precisely. To build a permanent charging depot, a business has to buy land, trench through asphalt, upgrade the local power grid, pour concrete, install the chargers, and hire technicians to maintain them.
It's a nightmare.
It is. Keles wraps the physical hardware, the software, the grid optimization, and the maintenance all into one monthly subscription.
There's actually a fantastic real-world example of this in the sources. A company called Pioneer Power Solutions partnered with SparkCharge to deliver mobile DC fast-charging platforms to businesses.
Right, SparkCharge.
And SparkCharge just raised $30.5 million specifically to expand this network. We're talking about mobile units delivering anywhere from 180 kilowatts to 500 kilowatts of power as a turnkey rental.
And we should probably clarify those power metrics because they really dictate how fleets operate.
Let me take a swing at this. If we think of electricity like water flowing into a pool, the kilowatt-hour kW is the total size of the pool. It's the capacity of the battery. But the kilowatt kW is the width of the hose filling it.
Spot on.
So a 500 kilowatt system is an incredibly wide hose. It's pumping massive amounts of energy at breakneck speed.
Which is exactly what commercial fleets demand. They literally cannot afford vehicles sitting idle.
Here is where it gets really interesting for you as a listener, because you might be wondering who is actually driving this $16.8 billion market.
Right, who's paying for all this?
The market forecasts show that commercial fleets account for 42% of all Canis revenue. The specific, grueling logistical nightmares of moving heavy cargo are birthing these massive mobile power stations.
Yeah, and the program details from the MassCC really illuminate the physical roadblocks these fleets are hitting. Their medium and heavy-duty program points out that fleets are turning to mobile charging subscriptions because permanent infrastructure is literally stalled.
Yeah. MassCC cites facility upgrade delays. They note that if a business wants to install heavy-duty permanent chargers, they often have to wait up to 36 months just for switchgear upgrades and permitting.
36 months. And we should define what a switchgear is because it's kind of the invisible bottleneck in this entire industry.
Okay, what is it?
A switchgear is the massive industrial circuit breaker and distribution panel that safely routes high-voltage power from the city grid to the individual chargers. You can't just plug 50 fast chargers into a standard commercial power line. You would melt the local grid.
Right. So why does it take 3 years to get one?
Because installing a new switchgear usually means the local utility company has to literally dig up miles of public streets to bring thicker, higher capacity power lines to that specific industrial park. The permitting, the environmental reviews, the physical construction, it takes years.
3 years is a lifetime in logistics.
Yeah.
You can't buy a fleet of electric semi-trucks and just let them sit in a lot for 36 months waiting for the city to dig up the road.
No, you'd go bankrupt.
Exactly. Add to that the MassCC note about facility ownership structures. If a business leases their warehouse, the landlord is not going to let them tear up the parking lot to install $1 million of permanent switchgears and concrete charging islands.
Which forces the industry to create hardware designed specifically to bypass the grid.
And the tech here is phenomenal. The sources highlight a company called Exos Trucks that built something called the Exos Hub. It's a massive mobile EV station.
It's huge.
It contains a 280 kilowatt-hour battery, so a huge storage tank, and outputs power at 160 kilowatts. It can charge 4 commercial vehicles simultaneously.
And the best part is that it's modular.
Right. If your fleet grows, you don't call the city for a new permit. You just run a second Exos Hub and physically link them together in your parking lot.
It's just plug-and-play infrastructure on a massive scale. And there's another company in the TechSci report, ZEVX, that introduced a mobile charging unit that literally fits into the bed of a standard pickup truck or a small trailer.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it provides on-demand power anywhere a commercial fleet or a rental car agency needs it.
Hold on, though. If I'm running a massive fleet of FedEx or Amazon delivery vans, why am I bothering to rent expensive mobile chargers for my own depot at all?
What do you mean?
Like, why don't I just give my drivers a corporate card and tell them to hit the public fast charging stations on their delivery routes? We just established there are chargers out there.
It's a logical question, but the EO charging white paper absolutely decimates the idea of fleets using public infrastructure. They argue that public charging is fundamentally incompatible with commercial logistics for a few crucial reasons.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First is simply physical geometry. Public charging bays at rest stops or grocery stores are designed for passenger sedans. They are not built for a 40-foot box truck.
Oh, we're right.
The parking spots are too narrow, the turning radiuses are way too tight, and honestly, the charging cables physically do not reach the charge ports on a commercial vehicle.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, a semi-truck can't pull into a typical gas station either.
Exactly. But the second, much more severe issue is reliability. The EO white paper points out that roughly 1 in 5 public charge attempts currently fail.
Wait, a 20% failure rate. That is unacceptable for a business.
It's catastrophic. A commercial fleet simply cannot afford the economics of downtime. They can't pay a driver an hourly wage to sit idle in a grocery store parking lot, fighting with a broken public charger while packages pile up and delivery windows are missed.
Yeah, that would be a disaster.
Commercial fleets must have private, reliable depot charging. If they can't build it permanently, they must subscribe to a mobile solution. Business continuity just demands it.
Which really brings us to the ultimate realization of this whole deep dive. The massive batteries, the autonomous robots, the solar panels, all of that hardware is only half the battle.
Yep.
Because if a fleet's chargers fault out in the middle of the night, the trucks don't run the next morning, and the business bleeds money. The real secret weapon in the EV revolution isn't the battery cell. It's the invisible software layer ensuring the power actually flows.
Without highly intelligent software protocols, a $500,000 mobile charging hub is just a very heavy paperweight.
The EO Charging White Paper focuses its entire thesis on this. They outline what they call a charge assurance framework. When you're running commercial logistics, an 80% success rate is a joke. Fleet operators require better than 99.5% uptime from their chargers.
Minimum.
Right. And what's really surprising from the data is that the failures rarely involve a physically broken cable or a smashed screen.
Right, the hardware itself is usually industrial grade. The failures that cause that 20% drop-off in public charging are almost always digital or systemic.
Yeah, EO lists the most common faults. It's often a loss of internet connectivity between the smart charger and the central network. Or it's a site overload, where plugging in 50 trucks at once accidentally trips the local grid's breakers.
Or user error.
Right, simple user error. A driver plugs the heavy cable into the truck, but it doesn't click perfectly into place. The system registers a connector clock failure, the digital handshake between the truck and the charger never happens, and the truck just sits there all night receiving zero power.
And the next morning, that driver has a dead truck and a full route.
So how does software fix a driver plugging a cable in wrong? A line of code can't hold a wrench.
Well, EO uses what they call self-healing capabilities. Their software automatically detects these faults in real time and can remotely rectify 47% of system issues without a single human mechanic ever being dispatched.
Okay, we should explain the mechanism of how software heals a physical charger, because it isn't magic.
No, not at all. It's essentially an incredibly sophisticated version of turning your internet router off and on again. Really. When that connector clock failure happens, a dumb charger just flashes a red arrow light and gives up. But EO software recognizes that the physical connection is secure enough to transmit data, even if the initial power handshake failed.
Oh, I see.
So the software remotely clears the false positive error code from the charger's cache, resets the digital communication protocol with the truck's onboard computer, and forces the handshake to try again.
And suddenly the power starts flowing in the middle of the night, completely autonomously.
Exactly. It's the difference between static infrastructure and a smart energy network. It's constantly monitoring, diagnosing, and repairing its own pathways.
The case study EO provides for this software in action is brilliant. They highlight the Stagecoach Romford Bus Depot in the UK.
Oh, that's a great example.
Right, Stagecoach is the UK's largest bus operator, and they're in the process of electrifying 8,050 buses by 2035. At this specific Romford depot, they had to figure out how to charge dozens of massive buses every single night. But the physical yard was so incredibly cramped, they literally could not install chargers on the ground. There was no space for the concrete island.
So how do you route high-voltage cables without ground space?
They took it to the ceiling. They mounted 20 kmh fast chargers and 9 heavy-duty retractable cable reels directly to the ceilings and the upper walls of the depot structure. The buses pull in underneath, and the drivers just pull the massive cables down from above.
That is an incredibly elegant engineering solution to a spatial constraint. But, pulling down cables doesn't solve the electrical bottleneck. Charging dozens of transit buses simultaneously requires an astronomical amount of power.
That was the second much bigger hurdle. The Romford Depot has a strictly limited power capacity agreement with the local utility grid. If they plugged all those ceiling cables into the buses at the exact same time when they returned from their routes at, say, 6:00 p.m., the sheer draw of amperage would blow the substation and black out the surrounding neighborhood.
Which is where dynamic load balancing becomes critical.
Exactly. They installed EO's hub software to act like a hyper-efficient traffic cop at a 4-way intersection. The software knows exactly how much total amperage the depot is allowed to pull from the city grid.
Right.
When all the buses plug in, the software doesn't give them all power. It reads the battery levels of every single bus, looks at their scheduled departure times for the next morning, and actively throttles the current.
That's so smart.
It might say, Bus A is empty and leaves at 4 a.m., so gets maximum power now. Bus B is half full and doesn't leave until 8:00 a.m., so it gets zero power until midnight when the neighborhood grid demand drops.
It's orchestrating this highly complex, invisible dance of electricity. It ensures the local grid is never overwhelmed, and it specifically targets those off-peak, middle-of-the-night charging rates to save the transit company massive amounts of money on their utility bills.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about dynamic load balancing in a London bus depot or a 280-kilowatt mobile battery sitting on a trailer?
Good question.
It matters because whether you're waiting for a next-day package delivery from Amazon or you rely on a city bus to get to work, this invisible software layer is what ensures your daily life doesn't grind to a halt. The complex logistics of the modern world completely rely on these commercial vehicles actually being charged, repaired, and ready to roll before your alarm clock even goes off.
And this raises a vital question about where this technology is heading next. Right now, this software is highly reactive. A fault happens and the software heals it. A bus plugs in and the software manages the load.
Right.
But by integrating AI and machine learning into these networks, the industry is moving toward predictive maintenance. The software will analyze microscopic fluctuations in charging temperatures or data latency to anticipate a hardware failure or a grid overload weeks before it actually happens.
Wow.
It transforms the power grid from a static utility pipe into a living, thinking network that preemptively routes around its own problems.
It's like the electrical grid is growing a central nervous system.
Hmm.
Okay, let's bring all of this together.
Mhm.
We started this deep dive looking at how AAA is using a decade of data to rescue stranded families on the highway with specialized mobile chargers. From there, we explored how major logistics fleets are bypassing 3-year municipal construction delays by subscribing to massive, linkable battery hubs. And finally, we saw how self-healing software and dynamic load balancing act as the invisible hand keeping those fleets running without blowing out the neighborhood power grid.
It's a phenomenal rate of innovation. We're watching the foundation of transportation being rewritten in real time. And, it leaves us with a fascinating thought to ponder.
What's that?
If autonomous charging robots, like that Flashbot navigating the Detroit parking lab, become cheap and commonplace, and if AI software perfectly balances the power grid in real time, will future parking lots even need painted lines or designated charging spots?
Oh, think about the urban design implications of that.
Will parking spaces become entirely fluid concepts? You might just leave your car anywhere within a designated municipal zone, and robotic chargers will constantly shuffle around us like worker bees, transferring power seamlessly from the grid to the cars while we shop or while we sleep.
That's wild.
The infrastructure itself ceases to be a destination. It just becomes an ambient service constantly moving around us.
That is an incredible visual to leave on. The charger coming to you, not just as an emergency lifeline on a desolate road trip, but as an invisible, everyday reality. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material.
It's been great.
Just remember, the next time you see an EV glide silently past you, the future of transportation isn't just about the electric motor. It's mobile, it's subscribed, and it is self-healing. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.